this video is going to focus on the Old Indian or Ukrainian defense. Now, this is an opening that I played for a bit with black because it's automatic, it's structurally based. If you play the Philidor, I've even had some series on it. Philidor or check system pair well with it, where you can essentially play this against everything if you choose to do so. So how can we, with white, really play against this line? So let's walk through some key things in a game that I messed up against a 2400 rated blitz player. I was very fortunate to be able to win the game, even though I messed up quite a bit here. So let's first start with the general structure. Normally instead of h3, e4 is played, but we're going to get there. So we begin with what does black want with a6. They're looking to play b5 at a certain point to get their bishop to a decent square. Now, I'm going to show a couple of lines emphasizing what white's plan should be versus what I did in the game, and then trying to make the most of my position after I mangled it. So I had found a game, like Zapata is a grandmaster who likely played the Old Indian the most, and I even lost to Zapata in an Old Indian in a tournament game. And I played the move that was recommended in of Rook's GM repertoire and felt I did pretty well, but couldn't play an Endgame then, probably still can't play one now at a reasonable level, and Zapata put me away pretty easily in an equal ending. So two options, a4 or queen c2. Let's say we get this style of position with e4. What's the optimal development and what is our future plan? In the game, I played in a similar position, rook e1. This is how we should handle this. Black's going to need to figure out how to uncoil, either by capturing some point on d4 or just playing b6, bishop b7 and waiting and hoping that we're going to do something. So bishop f8, looking to place more pressure on the e-pawn. And this is why it's useful to have the queen here, because in the event of capture, we capture back with the knight, and the bishop's holding the pawn. So the pressure seems to be happening on the d-file. We want to keep the f-rook where it's at. This is going to come along with the future plan. So after g6, b3, solidifying, and at some point they're going to need to take on d4 to make progress. And now g4, f4, the reason that rook needed to be on f1, we can really build up the pressure and have the attack. This is how we should be handling the position. So in the main game, I went a4, e4, and after takes, knight c5. Instead of queen c2, like we saw in the previous position, I went rook e1. But again, to emphasize, here's an example game. Rook a d1, g4, same theme. Make sure our king is off of any potential nonsense in the future. Very, very solid position. Where's any weakness that black can exploit? f4. Get the bishop out of any harm's way from any discoveries while keeping this x-ray going. After g6, finally the breakthrough with e5. And this is just a fantastic example of how to play. It's the Old Indian in general, where in the World Senior Championship from 2023, white went on to win. And the classics really never go out of style. So understanding what you should do now, playing against the Old Indian, let's see what I did and how my position got worse almost immediately. Showing that this opening with black is still reputable, that even a well-versed opening theoretician like myself screws up in games. So I went rook e1, so I defend the pawn. Okay, we got it. h6. I went queen c2, but now without my rook on f1, I'm not even considering playing the f-pawn. And if I'm not doing that and I'm not attacking, what should I be doing? Yeah, I don't know. So here it should be the question, what is black trying to do when they went knight ft7? It's trying to go to e5 with the knight. It's going to centralize the knight. It's going to be good. So how about you logically play a move like f4 to take that away? We're not using logic. We're using... I think I can put my bishop on f4 and I'm going to attack the d6 pawn. It's like, no, you're not. I'm going to do what I wanted to do, and I'm attacking your c pawn now. So I'm playing defense. And black should go for here, followed by knight takes, with a little bit of an edge. My opponent was kind and went queen c7, rook a d1. And here I should admit that I'm wrong. Go bishop e3 and play for f4. But I decide, you know, that would make too much sense. So I'm going to go knight f3. And then change the structure, giving black a clear plan to drop a knight into d4. So now that I have sufficiently ruined my first move advantage, you got to try to make the most of this. I know the game has not been going well. This doesn't feel right. So, prophylaxis. What does black want? Wants to play knight d4. Any way to prevent that? Not really. If you do something like knight e2 and go full defense, they likely will go c5 and really cement their control over d4. So where should we be playing? On the king side. Well, I started with knight e2. And then rook a d8. So finally, after it being the plan the entire time, it took me 20 moves of fumbling around to finally get the f4 move. Bishop c8. f5. Trying to convince you to hop in now, because at least I've gotten some space. Nice in-between move by black. My dark square bishop is my good bishop. That's his bad bishop. Definitely understands what trade he needs to make here. We can't allow that. Takes, takes. Knight d8. And now I'm far more comfortable in the position because he didn't get a knight to d4, missed that opportunity, and I can really close the door on counterplay with a nice move c5 here. This should end things. But I fumble around a bit and give my opponent opportunities to play against that. I do play c5 eventually and see the merits of the idea, but missed it. I went h4 first. Okay, I just want this bishop on a square where it has no chance of being useful. Definitely should be considering c5 again, but I went g4. Said, okay, let's get some space over here. Black should go b6 to prevent me from playing c5. He went f6, more focused on the g-pawn push. Now I found c5. We're getting a closed position where really only white has choice of breaks. And seeing and understanding this, these are the types of positions that I really thrive in, the closed positions. So after knight f7, I begin to ask the question, how can I get the most out of my position and maneuver to improve pieces to their maximum? So my ideal would be getting the knight to c4. And it's going to be a journey, but if the knight can get there, that is going to be a well-posted knight that's hitting a weakness. So let's begin working on that task, because everything else is doing a good job in the position. Knight c1, knight d3, knight b2, knight c4. That's where he wanted to go. And after takes, takes, I was really happy to see queen d8, because now that's one less potential defender of a5. And yet again, I have this mentality of, okay, if you can do it in 2 or you can do it in 10, this is not one of those examples, because I played king f1 going, all right, I'm going to fully optimize. I'm going to get my king in a better position before I start working in this endgame. But it gives my opponent time to go knight h8, bishop f7, and I have to go backwards a little bit to get this c4 square. So white is still winning, but I allowed black something to do, something critical. Thankfully, though, my opponent missed the opportunity, and we both have the same idea of getting the kings in. So it's that slow squeeze. Yes, I could play bishop e1, but I'm waiting for the right moment to make it count the most. So let's get all of our pieces in the most optimal squares. So I go bishop f3 first to keep an eye on the pawns, and it helps that h5 is not something I have to worry about, and I might want to play g5 at some point, and that bishop could get in. So optimization, no rush. Bishop c7. Okay, now bishop e1. Let's grab that. Check. Check. And all I did was shuffle around to get the knight to a more flexible square. Now that I've won a pawn, we've got the 3-2 on the queen side. So let's use them. Get the bishop out of the way, and the pawns begin to march. Don't be in too much of a hurry because b5 is going to lose a pawn. Let's re-optimize and get our pieces to squares where there's nothing that black's going to be able to do to stop us. So knight c4. What's the most aggressive move? The captures. You want the g-pawn or you want the free h-pawn? I'll take the free one. Two options to capture here. Which one is better and why? G-pawn is better. Keeping the pawn structure symmetrical assures that the pawns cannot be moved, and very likely we now have a second passer. Principal, two weaknesses. Black's going to get overworked pretty quickly here as these pawns are going to march forward. Knight f7, optimal square, watching both ways in the position. Again, no rush. Bishop e2, setting up my bishop to be flexible. Both bishops are doing an amazing job compared to their counterparts, affecting both wings. So I want to tie down those pieces to worrying about the h-pawn, giving me the opportunity to make progress on the other wing. And after the terrible opening, I ended up playing a very reasonable middle game with few oversights and was able to get a pretty clean win here. So hopefully you got to see a few ideas on playing against the old Indian that you'll be able to utilize. That f4 plan, kind of necessary. g4, f4, as we've seen. If you like the fianchetto setup, this video is definitely for you. If you learned something and or enjoyed it in any way, give me a thumbs up, please. Give me that like. Maybe even subscribe. Definitely helps with the algorithm, and I would sincerely appreciate it. Thanks.